Dear students, in this presentation we are going to see the last bacterial disease in our syllabus, that is streptococcal pneumonia. Pneumonia, as you may be knowing already, is a lower respiratory tract disease where the lungs will be affected. And this is specifically called streptococcal pneumonia. The reason is pneumonia can be caused by different types of microorganisms, right from bacteria to virus to fungi. Many different organisms can cause pneumonia. But we are going to see specifically the pneumonia caused by a species of streptococci. And pneumonia is a very serious form of respiratory disease seen mainly in very young kids and also in very old people. The causative agent of streptococcal pneumonia is Streptococcus pneumoniae, which is commonly called pneumococcus. And pneumococcus was discovered by Pasteur in France and Sternberg in the USA in 1881. The morphology of this organism is gram-positive cocci, as the name suggests, but they are not present in the form of chains, but they are present as in pairs. That is, they are diplococci in nature. As you can see here, there are two cocci present side by side. So it is a diplococci, and if you take a single cocci and observe its shape, these are oval or spherical in shape, but when they are taken from a clinical sample, they don't have this proper shape. Instead, they will look like lanceolate shaped structure, almost like a bullet. That is, one side of the cocci will be flat, whereas the other side will be rounded or pointed in nature. So this is how they appear when you take this organism from a clinical sample. But when you grow it in a media and then take it and see the morphology, they might just look oval or spherical in shape. Fine. And of course, they are usually seen in pairs, sometimes in short chains. And one more very important morphological feature here is the outer covering, that is the capsule. Capsule envelops each pair of cocci, and you can very clearly see it by means of special staining procedures like capsular staining procedures, or by using India ink, or we will do another test called a reaction called Quollung reaction. With that also we can very clearly see this capsule form. Apart from that, they do not have flagella, so they are non-motile, and they are also non-spore forming organisms. So talking about cultural characters of Streptococcus pneumonia. Streptococcus pneumoniae is an aerobe and also a facultative anaerobe. It grows at an optimum temperature of 37 degrees Celsius. Being a human pathogen, it is quite obvious. And the optimum pH for its growth is around 7.8. The growth can be enhanced in the media in the lab by the presence of 5 to 10% carbon dioxide. And unlike many other Streptococcus species, this is a fastidious organism. That means they grow only on an enriched media. They grow only in the presence of some special substance like blood agar or chocolate agar. And the capsules are seen, of course, as I said, but capsules are present in strains taken from a clinical specimen. But when you grow it in the laboratory, continuously subculture it, after some period of time, this capsulated form may just disappear and you will see a non-capsulated form. So initially, when you take the specimen from some human sample and grow it in the laboratory, initially the colonies will be smooth in nature because of the presence of capsule. But as you go on subculturing this organism from one plate to another plate, after some period of time, the colony morphology might just become rough in nature because the capsule might have been lost by the organism. So this is what we call smooth to rough variation. So you might remember this particular character when we studied about Fred Griffith's experiment, where he used Streptococcus pneumoniae and he used such smooth and rough experiments for his studies. Smooth colonies are usually pathogenic in nature, whereas the rough colonies were non-pathogenic in nature. So from that time onwards, the colony characteristics of Streptococcus pneumoniae have been studied in detail. Coming to the biochemical characteristics, Streptococcus pneumoniae ferments many sugars, but while fermenting they produce only acid and not gas. And this is one special substance that you need to remember, which is fermented by Streptococcus pneumoniae. Inulin. Inulin is a polysaccharide which is produced by many plants, many different types of plants, and it has been industrially extracted from plants like chicory. So, when Streptococcus pneumoniae grows in the presence of inulin, it can ferment inulin, whereas the other species of streptococci cannot ferment inulin. In fact, this particular inulin fermentation is used to differentiate streptococci from other species of streptococci. The next biochemical character is bile solubility. Capsulated form of Streptococcus pneumoniae can solubilize bile salts, whereas the non-capsulated forms cannot. And pneumococci are both catalase and oxidase negative. What are the different types of antigens present in this organism? Let us see that the antigens that I mentioned, you can also call them as virulence factors because they are going to help the pathogen to establish the infection in the respiratory tract. So the first one among that is capsule. This capsule is a polysaccharide substance and it mainly protects the pathogen from phagocytosis in the environment where it establishes the infection, especially in the upper respiratory tract where it first causes the infection. The capsule of this organism is going to protect it from phagocytosis. The second one is pneumolysine. This is a toxin produced by this pneumococci, and this toxin especially changes the mucociliary clearance function of the respiratory epithelium and also inhibits the phagocytic cell. See, our respiratory tract has a very good immune response to any type of antigen that comes and tries to lodge us. So whenever you get a sneeze or a cough or some kind of mucus in your nose, it means that the foreign substances that has lodged in your respiratory tract is getting cleared by the mucociliary action. So this action is a very good immune response that is present in our system, but Streptococcus pneumoniae can effectively overcome this mucoclearance with the help of pneumolysine. And the third important virulence factor is an enzyme called IgA protease. See, we know that one of the very important type of antibody that is present in the human body is IgA type of antibody, and this IgA type is usually seen in the mucus linings. Wherever you have mucus linings or epithelial linings, in all these spaces you will find this IgA, and in the mucus linings it is specifically called secretory IgA. And the most important function of the secretory IgA is whenever a pathogen tries to colonize the mucus lining, this secretory IgA will recognize it, will go bind on it, and in turn will stimulate the phagocytosis process in that region so that the pathogen will get cleared from the region very efficiently. But when Streptococcus pneumoniae colonizes the particular region where secretory IgA can be present, pneumoniae will release an enzyme called IgA protease, which will cleave this IgA antibody, and thereby it will again escape from phagocytosis process. And the last virulence factor is the different types of polymers and proteins present in the cell wall of Streptococcus pneumoniae. This include teichoic acid, peptidoglycan, adenosines, which are proteinaceous in nature, phosphoryl choline, F protein, etc. All these contribute to the pathogenic process of pneumococci in different ways. Serotyping of pneumococci. This is one special topic here you should be knowing about Streptococcus pneumoniae. The reason is this species is classified into more than 90 different serotypes. That means more than 90 different types of Streptococcus pneumoniae can cause infection in human beings. How the serotyping is done? Mainly based on the antigenic structure of the capsule. The polysaccharide capsule differs from one serotype to another serotype, and based on that we have almost 90 different serotypes of Streptococcus pneumoniae. And why the serotyping is done? Mainly for epidemiological studies, that is in India, what type of serotypes cause pneumonia, and in US, in Japan, different types of Streptococcus pneumoniae causes pneumonia. So mainly for epidemiological studies or for distribution studies, we do the serotyping reaction. And this serotyping of Streptococci is done mainly based on capsular swelling reaction. You can either call it as capsular swelling reaction, or you can also call it as Querlung reaction. Why Querlung? The reason is in Latin, Querlung means swelling. So when capsule undergoes swelling in this reaction, we call it as Querlung reaction. So why is it called capsular swelling reaction? Basically, the test is done in that way. So in this test, what we do is we are going to mix a drop of type specific antiserum with a drop of pneumococcal suspension on a glass slide. And then we are going to add a drop of methylene blue to it. Now what will happen if the capsular polysaccharide binds with the antiserum that we have added, specific homologous antiserum that we have added, then it will become swollen. If the antiserum is different, it will not form a complex with the antiserum, so it will not get swollen. Only in the presence of the specific antiserum, the two type specific antiserum, the capsule will form a complex with the antiserum, resulting in swelling of the capsule. Not only swelling, as you can see here, the capsules are swollen in nature. Not only swollen, they will also not take the stain, so they will look colorless, clearly delineated from the cells. The cells will look blue in color because of the presence of methylene blue, whereas they will not take up the color. They will be totally delineated from the cells, and the capsule will also be transparent in nature. That means refractile in nature. So this test basically is done in this way. A drop of antiserum mixed with the drop of cell suspension. If the capsular antigen matches with the type specific antiserum that we have added, then it will get swollen and it will be refractile. It will be totally delineated from the cells, and this reaction is called capsular swelling reaction. And as I said, this will happen only when the capsular antigen binds with the type specific antiserum. So this is how serotyping is done. So for all the 1 to 90 serotypes, we have 90 different types of antiserum with which we can find out what type of serotype of Streptococcus pneumoniae we have with us. This is another test which we should be knowing when we talk about Streptococcus pneumoniae, that is optokin sensitivity test. This test is basically done to differentiate Streptococcus pneumoniae from other pathogenic streptococci like Streptococcus viridans and Streptococcus pyogenes. Streptococcus pneumoniae is sensitive to this particular chemical called optokin. Optokin is ethyl hydrochlorine. And other pathogenic streptococci are not sensitive to this drug, to this chemical, that is optokin. So how we do this test? Just like antibiotic sensitivity test, what we need to do is we have to first prepare blood agar plate, and on that we have to go for smearing the Streptococcus pneumoniae culture by means of a swab, and then we have to keep a disc of optokin, that is a disc containing 5 grams of optokin will be kept at the center, and then incubate it overnight at 37 degrees Celsius. And at the end of the incubation period, if it is Streptococcus pneumoniae, you will see a wide zone of inhibition of around 15 millimeter or more, whereas other pathogenic streptococci will not give rise to such wide zone of inhibition. So this is a clear way of finding out which species is there with us. Talking about the pathogenesis of pneumonia, infection is acquired mainly by inhalation of droplet nuclei and also by coming into contact with contaminated fomites, that is inanimate objects. And sometimes infection can also happen from an endogenous route, that is the organism which is normally present in the respiratory tract because of disturbance in the immune machinery of the person. From an endogenous route also it can cause infection. But whatever it is, once it comes into contact with the respiratory epithelium, it will first try to colonize the oropharyngeal region, but by adhering to the epithelial cells of the pharynx, the upper respiratory tract, and from there it may start spreading to other parts which is nearer. So it may cause infection in the middle ear, in the paranasal sinuses, and also the lower respiratory tract by direct spread. And usually how it causes disease in this way: first it will colonize and start getting spreaded to other cells in the area where it has colonized, and it will start destroying the tissues in that area. And while doing it, our immune system will get activated, of course, and phagocytosis might get stimulated also. But as I said before, because of all the virulence factors that is present in this organism, very strong virulence factors, they will very efficiently avoid this opsonization and phagocytosis process. Opsonization can be avoided by IgA protease, and phagocytosis is avoided by many other substances like capsules and nemolysins. The most common clinical feature in this disease is, as the name tells, is pneumonia, where the lower respiratory tract, that is the lungs, will get affected. The pneumonia may be either lobar pneumonia or bronchopneumonia. Pneumonia mainly develops when bacteria starts multiplying in the alveoli. And what is meant by lobar pneumonia is when one or both the lobes of the lungs are affected fully. Instead of just getting small patches in the lungs, if the whole lobe of the lung is affected, either the lower side or the upper side, if the whole lung is affected, resulting in inflammation, it is called lobar pneumonia. Whereas if patches of tissues are getting affected inside the lungs in both the lobes, then it is called bronchopneumonia. Most of the times distinguishing between the two is a little difficult, but what clinicians say is the disease may get advanced from bronchopneumonia to lobar pneumonia. That means from small patches distributed throughout the lungs, it may proceed to the whole lung getting affected, just like in lobar pneumonia. And this pneumonia is commonly seen at the extremes of ages, that is in children and also in elderly, because their immune system is either immature or it has aged, mainly because of that. And of course, people with comorbidities, people with lessened immune system also will get affected with this disease quite often. And apart from pneumonia, the other clinical symptoms that are associated with pneumococcal disease is otitis media, that is the infection in the middle ear, and also sinusitis. Septicemia, when the infection spreads to blood, then it becomes a septic in nature, septicemia. And sometimes wound infection may also happen with this disease. And meningitis, this is especially seen in very young children, neonatal meningitis we call it, and this mainly affects the children. The bacteria mainly reaches the bloodstream, reaches through the bloodstream to the brain or from nasopharyngeal region, and this is a very serious condition in young kids. Even with antibacterial therapy, the mortality, that is the death due to pneumococcal meningitis, is nearly 25%. So talking about epidemiology, Streptococcus pneumoniae is worldwide in distribution. As I said before, there are around 90 serotypes. Among that, serotype 6, 14, 18, 19 and 23 are usually associated with infection in children, whereas serotypes 1, 3, 4, 7, 8 and 12 usually affect adults. And children between 6 months and 4 years of age and adults over 60 years of age are most commonly at risk for pneumococcal infection. And this infection, in fact, accounts for more deaths than any other vaccine preventable disease. What is meant by that? We have a vaccine for this pneumococcal infection, but still, with the vaccine in hand, we see more deaths with this infection than any other disease which are preventable with vaccines. And in developing countries like India, the incidence of this disease in children is many times higher than that in the developed countries. So for diagnosis of this infection, we may either go for direct microscopy or for culturing. For any of these two, the different types of specimens can be obtained. The most important specimen is sputum. As I said, it is a lower respiratory tract infection, so sputum will be the most preferred specimen here. But depending on where the infection is seen, like if it has if it has caused otitis media or sinusitis or meningitis or septicemia, depending on that, you can take different types of samples like endotracheal, aspirate, CSF, pleural fluid, joint fluid, abscess fluid, bones, and even other biopsy material. No matter which type of specimen you get, the first most common technique that is used is direct microscopy by gram staining. And in gram staining, you must be seeing gram-positive diplococci in pairs. And after that, you can go for culturing. And culturing has to be done on blood agar, and the identifying features of streptococci are mainly these 5. First is, as I said, gram-positive capsulated lanceolate cocci arranged in pairs must be seen under the microscope. And on blood agar, you should be seeing alpha hemolysis. And these 3 characters I had already explained to you, biochemical characters. The first one among that is it should be positive for bile solubility, and it should show positive for optokin sensitivity, and it should show positive for inulin fermentation. If you could confirm all this, you can say that the infection is caused by Streptococcus pneumoniae. So for treating the infection, you may go for penicillin, amoxicillin and erythromycin. Amoxicillin is the drug of choice mainly for treatment of otitis media, sinusitis and also pneumonia that is caused by penicillin resistant pneumococci. So this must be done first. Drug sensitivity must be seen after isolation. If the pneumococci is found resistant to penicillin, then we have to go for amoxicillin. And also you can use ceftriaxone. This is again the drug of choice for penicillin resistant pneumococci, which mainly affects the non-invasive pneumococcal disease. That is, if the CNS, central nervous system, is not affected, in that case you can use ceftriaxone. And sometimes even for ceftriaxone, the organism might be resistant. In that case, you can go for vancomycin. So for prevention, the general measure is you must maintain your lungs very healthy. This is the most effective preventive measure. And of course, the immune system has to be really active and good. Whereas as a special measure, we have a polyvalent pneumococcal vaccine. So this is, why is it called polyvalent? The reason is it has antigens from 23 different serotypes. In the same vaccine preparation, we have antigens taken from 23 different serotypes of pneumococci, which commonly causes infection in human beings. And this is especially recommended for young children and also for elderly patients. In fact, in the immunization schedule also, sometimes doctor recommend this vaccine for those kids who are at high risk of infection. So that is about prevention. Thank you.